The day I was promoted to director, my CEO boyfriend's doting female assistant publicly tore up my appointment letter, proclaiming she was his chosen design. Not until the meeting ended did my boyfriend explain to me that he gave the female assistant a promotion and a raise, and was completely compliant with her every whim, all because she held patent. He claimed he was doing it for the company's development and pleaded for my patience. But I knew he was lying, yet I didn't get angry. Instead, I called my boyfriend's cunning tactics impressive and offered to help shoulder burdens for him. For a moment, my boyfriend thought I was kept in the dark and thanked me for understanding his good intentions. The next day, my boyfriend, who had always urged me to be generous, saw me personally driving the new male intern to and from work. When I ordered 9,999 roses to confess my feelings to him, he was furious, ordering me to fire the male intern immediately. But I merely gave a fake smile. He's an heir of a powerful family in disguise, and I'm also doing this for the company. Just bear with it a little longer. Once I secure funding to help the company IPO, I'll definitely break up with him and get the marriage license with you. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Hearing my explanation, my boyfriend Marcus was speechless, seemingly never imagining that one day he would be countered with the very lectures he usually used to fob me off. He stared at me for a long time before asking suspiciously, "Grace, are you jealous of Chloe again? How many times have I explained to you that I'm only getting close to her to extract the patent she holds? Can't you just bear with it a little longer for me? Tell me honestly, exactly how far have things progressed between you and that intern, Ethan? Where does he live now?" Watching now, so paranoid and relentlessly questioning me, I couldn't help but want to laugh. When he broke protocol to hire Chloe, who had been unemployed for 3 years, as his personal assistant, he explained to me that Chloe was a design guru. He made great efforts to recruit her and headhunted with a substantial offer, and that the patent she held was enough for the company to establish a firm foothold in the industry. Since only handled business and didn't understand design, I felt something was fishy and worried Marcus might be deceived, so I just asked what kind of patent Chloe actually had. Marcus, however, instantly blew up, saying I was too controlling, and that instead of being jealous and too nosy all day, I should improve my own technical skills. Now, Marcus, who had always claimed I was too controlling, was practically trying to dig into every aspect of his past. People, when they apply double standards, are just unbelievable. Snapping back to reality, I let out a cold laugh and threw a photo at Marcus. In the photo, Walter, the head of the Hayes, one of the city's 4 most influential families, was personally serving food to the intern, Ethan, with a benevolent expression. Perhaps thinking someone like me could never marry an heir of a powerful family like Ethan, Marcus actually relaxed and playfully tapped my nose. "This is such a big deal, why didn't you tell me about it beforehand? I knew you couldn't possibly bear to abandon our relationship of so many years. So you were planning to trick funding out of the naive and inexperienced young master of the Hayes. You certainly have a lot of clever schemes." But hearing those words come from Marcus's mouth, I only felt a sense of irony. It was clearly he who had long since abandoned our 7-year relationship. Back then, Chloe had been at the company for less than a month when she accidentally saw Marcus and me on a date at the mall. The next day, she wrote a resignation letter, claiming she was heartbroken and wanted to quit. That evening, Marcus discussed a fake breakup with me, saying it would be easier for him to approach Chloe as a single man to extract her technology. He claimed it was all for the company, for me, and pleaded for my understanding. I believed him at the time and even played along with his breakup charade, moving out of our home to live alone. The next day, Marcus, who hadn't posted a social media post in over a year, immediately announced their relationship on social media with Chloe on his social media post. Marcus and I had never announced our relationship on social media in 7 years, and even group photos of us together were rare. Even my parents thought I was still single. It wasn't that I hadn't brought up announcing our relationship on social media, but Marcus always had endless lectures. 2 people together just need to live their own lives well. Why care about what others think? Happiness is your own, not something to be show off affection publicly. Don't look at how affectionate others are on their social media post. You never know how much they're arguing behind closed doors. I once thought I was too vain, too concerned with others' opinions, so I let Marcus do whatever he wanted. But in the blink of an eye, a year passed, yet there was no sign of the patent Chloe claimed to have, not even a draft. Every day she was either playing video games in the office or dragging Marcus out to get manicures with her. Anyone else would have long suspected Chloe was a fraud and fired her. but had his own stubbornness, claiming that geniuses were eccentric, and Chloe merely liked to have fun. When the company truly faced problems, she would be the trump card to turn things around. Because of this, Marcus not only favored her everywhere, but to silence others' doubts, he even gave my performance achievements to her so she could stay at the company. Chloe, on the other hand, felt no shame whatsoever. Instead, she was incredibly arrogant, basking in my accomplishments, and constantly saying my DSIG NS were poor, claiming if it were her, her performance would have doubled long ago. Even colleagues noticed something was off and often discussed it privately, but Marcus remained unmoved and instead fired all the employees who secretly discussed it. It was then that I gradually realized Marcus's heart might have changed long ago. Snapping back to reality, just as I was about to speak, Chloe walked in without even knocking on the office door, as if she owned the place. Marcus instantly let go of my hand, like a thief caught in the act, his face panic-stricken. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. It seemed that in Marcus's heart, Chloe was clearly his real girlfriend, while I was merely a rat that couldn't see the light of day. Noticing the smile on my lips, Chloe deliberately flaunted the director's badge around her neck and sarcastically sneered, "Oh, it's the ex-girlfriend. What, still clinging on, coming to pester my Marcus again? But then again, with your trash designs, only your thick skin could allow you to stay at the company. If I were you, I would have just killed myself." Listening to Chloe's taunts, I wasn't angry at all. Instead, I felt like laughing. On's first day at the company, she publicly tore up my design drafts in a meeting, claiming my drawings were outdated trash, and it was a miracle the company hadn't gone bankrupt yet. She haphazardly made a mess of the revisions, and that very evening, the client exploded, demanding to terminate the contract. The entire department worked through the night to redesign over a dozen versions. Only then did we manage to appease the client, but the originally agreed upon price was $2 million lower. But she not only refused to admit fault but also blamed me, claiming it was all because my design framework was too poor and couldn't support her advanced design concepts. Snapping back to reality, I was too lazy to say more to such a scoundrel and turned to leave the office. Chloe, however, acted as if she had won a great victory, and even through the door, deliberately shouted at the top of her lungs, bragging about her superior designs. I shook my head. Just as I returned to my desk, a sweet bun was handed to me. "Pulled into the office for a lecture first thing in the morning, you must be starving, right?" Ethan was looking at me, smiling gently, chin in hand. I took the sweet bun, and my heart warmed instantly. Even after more than 10 years, Ethan still remembered what I usually ate for breakfast. Speaking of which, Ethan and I weren't newly acquainted, but childhood sweethearts of many years. When my father was alive, when I was a child, our two families even had a childhood engagement. It's just that later I gradually got together with Marcus, and Ethan chose to study abroad. Now that he had returned from his studies, he heard I had broken up with Marcus because of Chloe, which was why he came to the company to find me. The internship for him was merely about experiencing life. Ever since I realized Marcus's heart had changed, and since we had already broken up, I also began to accept Ethan's kindness. I just had a fever and didn't come to work. Ethan not only inquired about my well-being, but also took time off to bring me medicine and make soup. But not only didn't ask a single question, instead, he called me pampered, saying I had disrupted his schedule, and then deducted half a year of my performance bonus. Love or not, it's always evident in the details. Noticing my unusual mood, Ethan suddenly gave a doting smile, then knelt on one knee in front of everyone. Instantly, colleagues' eyes widened, and they all stopped their work to cheer. This pose. Could it be? Is Ethan going to propose marriage? Ethan's only been working here for a few days. Is this love at first sight? They're so adorable. I looked at Ethan's serious eyes, and my heart stirred. Since had lost all sense of dignity for Chloe, why should I continue to Uffer? Snapping back to reality, just as I was about to speak, Marcus also heard the commotion, walked out of the office, and frowned. "During work hours, what kind of racket is this? Do you still want your commission?" Before he could finish, seeing Ethan on one knee and propose marriage to me, the documents in Marcus's hands suddenly dropped to the floor. Because had never announced our relationship on social media, the colleagues present naturally didn't notice Marcus's face, which had turned as black as coal, and continued to cheer. Kiss. Kiss. Sure enough. Before I could even say yes, Marcus unceremoniously dragged me into the conference. As soon as the door closed, Marcus grabbed my tie and questioned me. "Grace, what are you doing now?" Just because Chloe called you ex-girlfriend a few moments ago, you couldn't handle the provocation, and are you accepting Ethan's proposed marriage out of spite? What do you take me for? Looking at Marcus's exasperated face, I found it laughable. That question should be mine to ask. On the 100th day after Marcus and Chloe their relationship on social media, even Chloe herself didn't remember. Marcus, however, didn't miss a single second of their social media post announcement, spending millions to buy all the fireworks in the city, putting on a spectacular fireworks display at the exact moment of their announcement to celebrate their love. He, who usually ruthlessly exploit employees, for the first time ever, gave the entire company a day off, booking the most luxurious banquet hall in downtown with Chloe to celebrate their 100-day anniversary. The event was so grand that many media reporters thought it was a century wedding being held by a powerful family. Now, I was merely treating him the way he treated me. Yet he couldn't stand it. But I had endured such days for an entire year. Snapping back to reality, I decided to mimic the way he usually gave me lectures and feigned sincerity. Ethan is, after all, an heir of a powerful family experiencing life. Only by proposed marriage can the Hayes truly take notice and attract investment. I'm doing all this for the company, for our future. I didn't expect you not only wouldn't understand my good intentions, but would also give me attitude. If you can't accept it, then let's forget about this funding. I deliberately sighed deeply. Hearing this all too familiar rhetoric, Marcus's face stiffened, and only after a moment did he force a smile, taking my hand and explaining, "Grace, aren't I just worried about you, afraid you'll expose yourself and be targeted by the Hayes? Your safety, in my eyes, is thousands of times more important than any funding." Listening to his hypocritical words, those eyes that once made my heart race now only made me sick. He wasn't really concerned about me, he was just afraid his funding would fall through. Thinking of this, I simply opened the electronic copy of the investment intent letter on my phone. After seeing the full $20 million in funding, Marcus immediately cupped my face and kissed me. "Baby, you're amazing. Once the funding is in, we'll go to the county's office and get the marriage license." But I merely subtly wiped the saliva from my face. Getting the marriage license, I had brought it up with Marcus more than once. At first, he said he wanted to focus on his career, and we'd talk about it once the company was on track. Later, after I helped the company establish a firm foothold in the industry, he claimed his family wasn't happy with me. And though he wanted to get the marriage license with me, he couldn't steal the personal documents. Until recently, when getting the marriage license only required an ID, he gave in and agreed to get the marriage license with me. But at the entrance of the county's office, he claimed his ID was lost and needed to be reissued. But after waiting for 3 months, he kept making excuses about being too busy with business to go reapply. It seemed he was truly happy about getting the funding, even willing to proactively promise getting the marriage license as a way of making empty promises. But now, I no longer wanted to get the marriage license with him. Compared to endless lies and excuses, I still preferred Ethan's sincerity. After a moment, Marcus seemed to remember something, suddenly pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and turned to explain to me, "I have to meet a client later. I'll properly reward you next time." "Oh, right, don't be lazy when I'm not around. If you don't finish your work, your bonus for this quarter is out of the question." After saying that, Marcus grabbed his bag and left in a hurry. But I clearly glimpsed that he was texting Chloe. The moment he got money, his first thought was to take Chloe out to splurge and celebrate. It seems he really did care about Chloe. I imagine by now they were already discussing how to spend the $20 million in funding. However, Marcus had overlooked one thing. The next moment, I let out a cold laugh and scrolled to the very bottom of the investment intent letter, revealing the two parties of this funding agreement. It was indeed Hayes. But I never said that Marcus's company was receiving the funding. That was originally Evergreen, which I established independently. Marcus's company had a difficult start, and even now, the company's cash flow was still very tight. Insufficient project funding led to frequent design problems, and its reputation was getting worse and worse. Out of helplessness, I had to gather a few friends to open Evergreen and took on outsourced design challenges for Marcus at a low price. Now, since I was going to part ways with Marcus anyway, I naturally had to plan for my own future. The group was a powerful family, and I didn't want to be anyone's subordinate or trophy wife. To earn respect, I had to prove my strength even more. After discussing with Ethan, I re-registered my company, and with the Hayes' fund in, prepared to start my own venture. As I was pondering my next steps, my phone suddenly rang. It was Chloe, who had sent photos again. Every time Marcus went on a date with her, she never forgot to mock me, his ex. This time, she sent an appointment letter. Ex-girlfriend, didn't expect this, did you? I just acted cute and got the company's heavily invested S-level project, becoming the project leader. You say you work overtime every day at the company, what's the use besides wasting electricity? In the end, it's not as good as me just moving my lips. If I were you, I'd have no face to show, packed my bags, and scrammed. But I was unconcerned. Chloe was a notorious incompetent, and trusting such an important project to her would only make the company fail faster. It seemed Marcus was not only an unqualified boyfriend but also unfit to manage the entire company. Chloe, however, reminded me of something. It was time to completely break things off with Marcus, go home, pack my suitcase, and move out. Since I had our fake breakup, although we lived in the same neighborhood, we were living in separate homes. He had used the excuse of preventing Chloe from becoming suspicious, which now conveniently benefited me, saving me a lot of trouble from dealing with Marcus. By the time I finished packing my suitcase, it was already late at night. After saying goodnight to Ethan, I quickly went to bed, planning to leave the next day. But the next morning, I was suddenly woken up by the aroma of food. I initially thought Ethan had come to pick me up. But when I opened my eyes, I found Marcus in the kitchen, scrolling through cooking tutorials while wielding a spatula. You see, Marcus couldn't stand the smell of cooking oil. Not only had he never cooked, but he couldn't even tolerate a hint of smoke. For his sake, I, who had never used a gas stove since childhood, took care of all the housework. But why had this guy suddenly changed his tune today? As I wondered, my phone popped up with a news notification. 10 funds, what's next for Starlight? I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. So that's it. Chloe, knowing that her lack of patent would eventually be exposed, the very night she was appointed project leader, absconded with all the project's liquid funds and fled overseas. Marcus had originally hoped to use this project's huge profit potential to solve his financial problems, even stake the company's entire cash flow. Now, having lost all capital, the company was on the brink of collapse. His only hope was the $20 million in funding I had secured from Ethan. The next moment, Marcus came over, smiling, with breakfast, and said, "Honey, eat it while it's hot." Hearing this greasy endearment, I instantly lost my appetite and didn't touch a bite. Seeing this, Marcus could only give an awkward smile and stiffly change the subject. "Oh, right, how's that funding situation of yours? Has the Hayes transferred the money?" It seemed he was truly panicking, too lazy to even pretend anymore. I gave a cold laugh and directly opened my company account. Seeing the $20 million in funds credited, Marcus's eyes instantly lit up, and he excitedly hugged me. "Honey, you're amazing. I knew you could do it." "Oh, right, you were right before, Chloe is a fraud. I've already broken up with her. Anyway, nothing much is happening today, let's go get the marriage license now." I even brought my ID. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Marcus really did take me for a fool. Before, he could lose his ID even at the county's office entrance, and for months he claimed he had no time to reapply. But now, everything was prepared. He certainly changed his tune quickly. Thinking of this, I simply shook his hand off. "Who wants to get the marriage license with you? Aren't we already broken up?" Without waiting for him to speak, I opened the funding agreement, revealing the signature section. Moreover, I said the Hayes would provide funding, but when? Did I say it was for your company? Seeing my company and my name listed under Party B, Marcus froze on the spot. When did you open a company behind my back?" I found it amusing. "What, you're allowed to open a shell company to spend money on Chloe, but I'm not allowed to start my own business." Hearing this, Marcus's body involuntarily trembled. "How did you know?" "I only told Chloe about this." I merely shrugged. "Instead of worrying about that, you should think about how to face the board of directors and resolve this multi-million financial deficit." "Alright, Ethan is waiting for me to come home for dinner at our new place. Marcus, fend for yourself." With that, I grabbed my suitcase and was about to leave, but Marcus bit his lower lip and suddenly grabbed me. Because he pulled too hard, the next moment, the diamond ring Ethan had given me yesterday instantly fell to the ground. He had said to wear the ring and find him once I had made up my mind. After picked it up, he was momentarily stunned, then seemed to realize something. He suddenly smiled smugly and put his hands on his hips, speaking triumphantly, "No wonder I've been feeling you're so strange these past few days. Not only deliberately show off affection publicly with Ethan in front of me but also making a fuss about starting your own business. So you've finally wised up and learned how to play hard to get. Alright, I admit defeat. I didn't expect you to even prepare the ring. So this time, let me propose marriage to you, alright? As he spoke, Marcus on one knee, waiting for me to reach out and put on the wedding ring. But I just gave a cold laugh. Mr. Marcus, why don't you take a look at the engraving inside the ring? Hearing this, Marcus then noticed there were two initials engraved inside the diamond ring, and his old face instantly flushed. I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful, even specially engraving our on the wedding ring. But the next moment, when Marcus clearly saw the initials on the ring, the smile on his face instantly froze. Engraved on it were two elegantly carved initials, G.E. Grace and Ethan. Marcus's brain went blank with a buzz, completely empty. He frantically turned the ring over and over, even using his fingernail to scrape the inner surface of the ring. But those clear engravings, no matter what, wouldn't change into his and my names. No, impossible. He mumbled to himself, his bloodshot eyes staring fixedly at me. Grace, are you crazy? You were just playing along with him, wasn't it just to help the company get funding? How could you? How could you really be with him? Before his hysterical questioning could subside, the door was pushed open from the outside. Ethan stood gracefully at the main, carrying two empty cardboard boxes, an eyebrow raised. I had arranged for him to pick me up for the move. Ethan walked in, his gaze sweeping over Marcus's pale face and the ring on the floor, and let out a disdainful cold laugh. Grace is with me. What does that have to do with you, President? An ex-boyfriend who dumped Grace long ago for another woman, isn't he being a bit too nosy? Marcus was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, instantly bristling, his accusations directed squarely at Ethan. You man! What tactics did you use to seduce my woman? Slap. The next moment, a crisp slap echoed throughout the living room. I shook my stinging hand and looked at Marcus with cold eyes. Marcus, watch your mouth. Don't insult my fiancé. I deliberately emphasized the word fiancé. We broke up ages ago. When you announced your relationship on social media with Chloe, weren't you quite pleased with yourself? Marcus clutched his face, staring at me in disbelief. After a moment, his tears finally burst forth. After all, no matter how capricious or how much he was making a scene in the past, I was always the one who unconditionally stood by him. But now, for another man, I had hit him. This contrast was enough to shatter his last shred of pride. I was too lazy to look at his hypocritical expression anymore, so I took Ethan's hand and was about to leave with my suitcase. Don't go, but suddenly grabbed my arm tightly from behind. Grace, tell me, these 7 years, did you truly not love me at all? His voice trembled, carrying a last shred of hope. But I looked at him and merely nodded calmly. I had indeed loved him, but that love had long since dwindled, eroded by his repeated favoritism. But my nod, in his eyes, became a cold admission. Marcus's heart was completely shattered, his face ashen. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon my wrist. Marcus's eyes instantly lit up, as if he had grasped a final straw, and he gave a desolate smile. You say you don't love me anymore. Then why are you still wearing the bracelet I gave you? I followed his gaze. It was an old charm bracelet. That year of graduation, he bought it for me with half of his first month's intern salary. He said, business is a battlefield, and to dress impeccably so you would not to be underestimated by clients. At that time, I was overwhelmed with gratitude and vowed to help him become the most successful man. From then on, I worked overtime like crazy, hoping to get his career on track as soon as possible. Seeing me frozen, Marcus thought I was wavering. A light rekindled in his eyes. Grace, I know you can't forget these 10 years, and neither can I. Everything before was my fault. Let's pretend none of it happened and start over, okay? He was looking at me with tender affection. Still the eyes that once captivated me. But now, I only felt disgust, with no flutter of my heart. The next moment, I unfastened the bracelet from my wrist with a flick of my hand. As pupils suddenly constricted, I raised my hand and tossed it into the trash in the corner. I tugged at the corner of my mouth at him. Thanks for the reminder. I almost forgot, this trash should also be thrown out. With that, I stopped looking at him and turned to Ethan, a gentle smile instantly replacing my expression. Ethan, remember to buy for me a new one later. Hearing this, Ethan raised his eyes, gave me a sweet smile, his gaze brimming with tender affection. Of course, Grace. He replied readily, his voice clear. What material do you like? Finest jade, or imperial jade? You just choose, I'll pay for it. That single word, Ethan, was like the loudest slap, fiercely across Marcus's already bloodless face. His body swayed, he almost lost his balance. I ignored him, took Ethan's hand, and turned to leave. The wheels on the polished floor made a grating rumble, as if grinding against Marcus's last bit of self-respect. Stop. He finally snapped back from his utter breakdown, his voice hoarse, yet carrying an icy coldness. I paused, but didn't look back. In the air, only his hoarse threats remained. Grace, I'm giving you one last chance. If you dare to walk out of this main today with this man. He paused, and a desolate laugh echoed in the empty living room, sounding particularly eerie. We will be enemies. You should know Starlight's standing in the industry. A failing giant still has more power than a rising startup. I have plenty of ways to make sure your hard-won company receives no orders, getting absolutely nothing. You better think carefully. Oh? Threatening me? I finally turned around, a mocking curve on my lips. Looking at his face, twisted by jealousy, I only found it ridiculous. He still thought he was the high and mighty CEO of Starlight, believing the whole world revolved around him. Unfortunately, his rapidly sinking wreck of a ship was about to be shattered by the giant waves of change. I spoke lazily, with undisguised contempt in my voice. Do as you please. Having said that, I pulled Ethan and left without looking back. Behind me came the loud crash of porcelain shattering and Marcus's shouts. But I never looked back. After settling Ethan in, I drove straight to the company. I had barely stepped into the office and hadn't even warmed my seat. My assistant Mike burst in frantically without even properly knocking, his face filled with terror. Ms. Grace. This is bad. Something huge has happened. I didn't even lift an eyelid, slowly brewing myself a cup of her favorite oolong tea. What's there to panic about? But the assistant was almost in tears from anxiety. Ms. Grace. Marcus. Marcus from Starlight, he's made a declaration. He's used all his connections in the industry to completely blacklist us. He said, anyone who cooperates with our company is going against Starlight. Several clients we'd already secured have called to cancel their contracts. What are we going to do? Even if we have 20 million in funding, it's useless if we receive no orders. Hearing this, I picked up my teacup and gently blew on the floating tea leaves. The fragrant steam curling from her tea. I raised my wrist, glanced at my empty wrist, then looked at the wall clock. 4:30 in the afternoon. The time was about right. I took a sip of tea and said calmly, don't worry about him. His company should be on the brink of collapse by the end of today. Meanwhile, at Innovations, in the CEO's office, Marcus had smashed his favorite rare porcelain tea set, but his chest still felt tight with panic. But thinking of the desperate situation facing Grace's small, struggling company, a sense of vindictive pleasure rose in his heart. He smugly curved his lips and mumbled to his impeccably dressed in a suit reflection in the mirror, Grace, Grace, you dare to contend with me? You're still too green. Without my support, Marcus, you are nothing. He was certain that within half a day, Grace would come crawling back to him. And when that happened, he would make her dump that kept man right in front of Ethan. Just as he was immersed in his fantasies, bang, the office door was violently thrown open. The HR manager stumbled in, crawling, his face ashen, dripping with sweat. Marcus frowned and sharply rebuked him, panicking like this, what kind of behavior is that? The HR manager gasped for breath, barely holding onto his tablet, his voice trembling uncontrollably, Mr. Marcus. The entire technology and marketing departments have resigned. They said. They want to follow Ms. Grace. Grace. Marcus's pupils abruptly constricted. Follow? These words were like poisoned steel needles, piercing deeply into Marcus's heart. His mind buzzed, and for a few seconds, it was completely blank. Then, an overwhelming rage swept away all his reason. Bang! He slammed his hand on the table, the exquisite mahogany groaning in protest. This is outrageous. I'm the one who paid them, not a bunch of ungrateful traitors. He glared fiercely at the HR manager, as if trying to burn two holes through him. Go tell them. Get out now. And don't expect a single cent of severance pay. Furthermore, I'll personally make sure their background checks are thoroughly marked. I'd like to see who in this industry will dare to hire them again. However, the HR manager merely shook his head in despair. His already pale face was now even more ashen, like old paper. Mr. Marcus, I've already told them all of that. But they said, even if they don't get a single cent, even if they can't find another job, they accept it. They just want to work for Ms. Grace. These words were like a bucket of ice water poured over his head. All of Marcus's bluster and rage were instantly extinguished, leaving only bone-chilling coldness. He was stunned. So's influence on the company had already reached this extent? With a single command from her, she could easily pull the rug out from under him, turning his proud Starlight into a mere shell. He had always thought Grace was a vine clinging to the great tree of Starlight. Only now did he belatedly realize just how stupid he had been. It was he himself who had taken an untapped talent capable of revolutionizing the industry, treated it as an irritating obstacle, and discarded it like trash. Yet he had cherished Chloe, a fraud who only knew sweet talk and empty promises, holding her like a precious treasure. For a moment, a dense, stinging pain emanated from Marcus's chest. Was it regret? No. It was too late to say he regretted it now. He took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the panic in his heart, and resumed his CEO demeanor. So they resigned. Let them. He straightened his back and gave a cold snort, feigning composure. It's a good opportunity to clean house. These days, people are the least of our worries. Go immediately and post job advertisements, with double the salary. I refuse to believe we can't find people. The HR manager's lips trembled, his eyes darting away, wanting to speak but holding back. But, Mr. Marcus, the company's accounts, I'm afraid, can't even pay this month's salaries. Marcus suddenly felt his world collapsing. Shut up! He shrieked, losing his composure, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. You don't need to worry about the funds. I'll figure something out. I also know a very influential investor. Yes. As long as he's willing to invest, as long as we can get new investment, everything will be fine. He spoke incoherently, more like he was hypnotizing himself than trying to convince the HR manager. You, go now. Cancel all my meetings for this afternoon. I'm going to see an investor. The HR manager, as if granted a pardon, scrambled out of the office. The office door closed. The entire world fell silent in an instant. Marcus's forced composure, which he had maintained just moments before, crumbled completely. All strength drained from him, he slumped back into his leather chair. An investor? There was no investor. That was just a lie he had concocted. He knew better than anyone that Starlight was finished. The next moment, a thought frantically surged in his mind. Run. Yes, flee. Before the news spread completely, before the banks could freeze his accounts. As long as he could get away, he wouldn't be burdened with crippling debt for the rest of his life. He abruptly stood up, snatched the Rolex watch from his desk, and without even turning off his computer, rushed towards the side door of the office. It led to the fire escape. He couldn't use the main entrance. He couldn't let his employees discover that he was trying to flee. His leather shoes clattered against the cold concrete stairs of the fire escape, the sounds echoing like the tolling his final doom for him, a cornered animal. Finally, he saw the metal door marked emergency exit at the end of the stairwell. Freedom was just beyond that door. A surge of joy filled him, and he practically lunged forward. But the next moment, several figures blocking his path instantly froze the wild elation on his face. They were police officers, dressed in uniform, their expressions stern. The one in charge saw him emerge, a cold curve appearing on his lips. He pulled a badge from his pocket and flashed it before Marcus. Marcus, Mr. Marcus, correct? The man's voice was devoid of warmth. Marcus's heart sank, plummeting to the bottom. An overwhelming dread instantly clutched at his throat. The next moment, the officer's calm voice formally pronounced his death sentence. Mr. Marcus, you are suspected of tax evasion and illegal appropriation of company funds. Please, come with us. Tax evasion? Illegal appropriation of company funds? Hearing this, Marcus's brain went blank again. He hadn't done it. He swore, he absolutely hadn't. He had only signed some documents for legitimate tax optimization and cash flow management at Chloe's suggestion. Chloe had told him all big companies operated this way. How could it? How could it turn into a crime? He abruptly staggered back, his back hitting the cold metal door with a loud bang. No, you've made a mistake. I didn't. I don't know anything. He shook his head frantically, his dark hair clinging messily to his pale cheeks, looking disheveled and desperate. Someone must have framed me. Yes. It must be. His gaze swept around in panic, then settled on the shadows of the fire escape. There, a slender figure leaned. Marcus's pupils contracted sharply. Grace! It's you, of course it's you. Hearing this, Grace simply folded her arms, a cold indifference in her eyes that Marcus couldn't comprehend. She stepped out of the shadows, the sound of her high heels particularly clear in the empty stairwell. Every step seemed to be stepping on Marcus's shattered nerves. Grace curled her lips, her voice very soft, yet clear enough for him to hear. Marcus, stop struggling. Keep making a scene, and you'll look very bad. But the moment he saw Grace, Marcus found an outlet for his emotions. All his fear and despair transformed into vicious hatred. He pointed at Grace like a madman, screaming at the officers. It's her. It must be her who framed me. These charges are all fabricated. She wants to destroy me. Destroy innovations. Officers, don't believe her lies. She's retaliating deliberately because I dumped her and she held a grudge. In his view, in this world, only Grace had the motive and ability to do this. Grace merely shook her head gently, a scornful smile playing on her lips. Marcus, you're always so self-important. Grace looked at him, speaking clearly, word by word. The one who reported it to the authorities wasn't me. Marcus's pupils contracted sharply. The viciousness on his face instantly froze. What? Impossible. He muttered to himself, as if he had heard a wild story. Not her? If not Grace, then who could it be? The lead officer seemed to have had enough. He cast a cold glance at Marcus, his tone strictly businesslike. Mr. Marcus, Ms. Grace isn't lying. The person who filed a formal complaint under her real name and provided all the key evidence is named Chloe. Chloe. The nom. He exploded in Marcus's mind like a thunderclap. He froze completely, as if instantly petrified. The woman who had sweet-talked him, vowed to love him forever, and made him believe he had found his soulmate? The woman for whom he had broken up with Grace and personally destroyed everything? How could it be? The officer's cold voice continued, shattering his last shred of illusion. After absconded with the last huge sum from your company's accounts and fled the country overnight, she was lavishly spending at an offshore and was targeted by local authorities. We apprehended her while assisting the investigation, and to plead for leniency, she voluntarily confessed everything, including how she instigated you to sign fraudulent contracts, how to falsify accounts, and how to transfer company funds into her personal accounts. All the evidence was personally handed over to us by her. In that moment, Marcus felt his world completely shattered. He had lost. Utterly defeated. Defeated by his own stupidity and naivety. His supposed love had been an elaborate scam from beginning to end. His supposed lifeline was the very devil who pushed him into the abyss. With a thud, Marcus's legs gave way, and he actually knelt directly towards Grace. The man who, moments before, would have gladly devoured her, now looked like a whimpering dog. He grabbed Grace's leg, his face smeared with tears and snot, no longer caring about any dignity. Grace. Grace. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Help me. Please, help me this one time. This was all Chloe's fault, that vile woman ruined me. I didn't know anything. He cried, gasping for breath, his voice desperate. If you just get me out, I'll do anything for you. Company shares, house, car, I'll agree to anything you want. I can serve you like a slave. I don't want any status anymore. Just to be by your side. Please. I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to come out burdened with crippling debt. Seeing in such a pathetic and unscrupulous state, the surrounding officers cast him contemptuous looks. Grace looked down, quietly observing this man who had completely lost his composure. His face, stained with tears and regret. Once, this face had been radiant, and it had captivated her. But now, only revolting desperation and calculation remained. Grace shook her head calmly. Marcus. You're still the same as before, with no bottom line. Her voice was calm, without a ripple of emotion. Hearing this, Marcus's hand, gripping Grace's leg, suddenly froze. Grace slowly pulled her leg back, stepping away from him, creating distance. It was a chasm he could never cross. Marcus, you have to pay the price for what you've done wrong. This is what you deserve. After speaking, Grace didn't spare him another glance. She turned and walked away. Behind her, his more desperate, heart-wrenching cries could be heard. And the cold voice of an officer. Take him away. Later, Chloe was sentenced to 10 years in prison for massive fraud, forgery of financial instruments, and other charges. Marcus was sentenced to 3 years in prison for tax evasion, illegal appropriation of company funds, and other charges. Starlight declared bankruptcy and liquidation due to its financial chain collapsing. Marcus not only lost everything but was also burdened with astronomical debt that he personally couldn't repay. When he got out, he would face a life even more desperate than in prison. Evergreen, after taking over Starlight core technology and marketing teams, soared, flourishing. A year later, their brand new designs revolutionized the industry. Grace also used this achievement to gain Ethan's family's approval. They finally gave their blessing and agreed to her marriage with Ethan. On their wedding day, sacred music played in the church. Grace, wearing a white wedding gown, stood at the end of the aisle, watching the man in a white suit, his eyes gentle, walking towards her step by step under the spotlight. He was her only light in her dark past, and all hope in her bright future. Grace looked at Ethan and smiled softly. The next moment, amidst everyone's blessings, she stepped forward, embarking on a new chapter. Thanks for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share with friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your views. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.